We identify to our trauma. We identify to our pain. And this is what causes suffering. You are holding on to the stories that are living inside of you and you are identifying with them. There's grief. There's grief and not suffering anymore when you've created a whole identity around it. So I would say the root cause of suffering is, in a way, two things. Let's see what the message is for today. The root cause of suffering. I was actually reflecting about this morning. This is a big subject. Oh, hey, a little cat joining. You see, animals don't suffer. Why don't they suffer? They can experience pain, but they don't suffer because they are not in resistance with their existence. We somehow, look at this. We are nature, okay? But we somehow see nature as something separate from us. We somehow, in this day and age, disconnected ourselves from our true nature. And nature knows its purpose, knows what it has to do. Nature knows how to heal itself. Nature is intuitive. It's just what is. Mother Nature knows what to do. Everything in nature just goes about their day. They know what their purpose is here, what their role is, what their skills are, and it's just very intuitive. It's just very natural. You know, a deer, there's a lion running after a deer, it's gonna run away. It's gonna feel stress in that present moment to be able to run away. But then it's gonna continue to graze and it's gonna forget about that lion. It's gonna live its life. It doesn't hold on to things. It doesn't hold on. We could learn so much from nature because we are nature and we forgot that. The Native Americans and Aborigines and stuff, like back then, they were so much more connected. And when you look at the Native teachings, you feel a sense of home because there's so much truth that we got disconnected from. We got into a survival mode. We got into our head. We got disconnected from the natural part of who we are, our nature, and the spirit aspect of ourselves. And we started identifying. We identify to our trauma. We identify to the survival. We identify to our pain. And this is what causes suffering. Suffering and pain is two different things. You can't feel pain without suffering. Pain will never go away. Suffering is a choice. It's something that doesn't need to be experienced. It's something that you don't need to hold on to, but you are holding on to it, and that's why you are suffering. You are holding on to the stories, to the wounds, to the traumas that are living inside of you, and you are identifying with them. You are saying, it's like there's this box inside of you, and there's all these memories, all these stories, all these wounds, all these beliefs. And instead of seeing it as something apart from you, there's a box, and then you open it and there's all these stuff, and then you can like clean it out and read every story and burn it or whatever, release it. But instead you're living in that box and you are saying, I am this box. So it's so hard to liberate yourself from the pain because you are identifying with it. So to liberate yourself from it, you literally have to kill the identity that you've created. There's grief. There's grief and not suffering anymore when you've created a whole identity around it. When you've attached yourself to this suffering, to these stories. I am like this. This is just who I am. And so the root cause of suffering is not so much because we experience stuff and there's pain. It's our attachment to those things. We're so scared of letting go of it. And I read a Reddit post a few weeks back. Actually, I was talking about this and they were saying how suffering is inevitable as being a human. Like if you're a human, you suffer and the only way out is by dying. And then dying should be legalized, like assistance to dying. And when I read that, the first thing that came to my mind is it's true, but it's not true that we have to physically die. It's true that to release ourselves from suffering, there's parts of us that have to die. There's stories that have to die. There's these beliefs of who we think we are that have to die so that we can really connect to the truth of who we are, to our divine selves, to our true selves, to our natural selves. Because when we see ourselves as a whole, when we see ourselves truly for who we are, outside of the pain, outside of those stories, suffering doesn't exist there because you're not attached to it as if your life depended on it. Now it's free. So I would say the root cause of suffering is, in a way, two things. It's that we forgot who we are disconnected from our true self, and we created an identity to a false self. So it's the same thing. You know, roots have different roots. So it manifests itself in different ways. We have identified to what happened to us, to the stories it created in us. We are rejected when we are a child. I am not loved, and we identify to that pain. This is who I am. And in order to release that pain, you have to grieve from that identity. This is what happens, and this is why it's so hard. Because we are attached to it, we can't seem to let it go. Even we say we want to let it go, but we're so attached to who we are in that identity. We don't know who we are outside of that. And we choose a familiar chaos instead of the unknown. There's all this possibility of all that life can be for you. And you are attached to this little thing, and you're so scared to let go because you don't know what's on the other side of it. But what's on the other side of it is way better than what you're attached to. But this feels safer because you're familiar with it. You're familiar to this story you've created about who you are and what life is. You're familiar with your suffering, but there's so much around it. Whatever you're experiencing, whatever suffering that you're holding on to, whatever story, it's true to you. It's true to the person that experimented it. It's there, but it's not the truth. So if you want to let go of that suffering, you have to come out of the box and start seeing the box for what it is. And don't just leave the box there and pretend it doesn't exist. You can face the box, unbox the box, start looking at those stories, start questioning those stories. Hey, the story that I'm not enough. Nature never thinks it's not enough. Like the ant will never compare itself to the lion saying, oh, I'm small, I don't serve for anything. Like the lion is so much bigger than me. It's so much more powerful. It does so much more things. Like I'm just a little ant. No, the ant just does its own thing. And it's enough, and we need the ant, we need the bee, we need the tree, we need the plant, we need the cat, we need all these things. It's an ecosystem. We need you. You are enough, but then you question if you're enough, and you hold on to that identity as if it was you. I am not enough. No, you are the person that thinks you are not enough, but you are not enough. You are something outside of it. So dissect those stories. Where is this coming from? Is it possible that I am enough and this is just a story that was created through traumas, through experiences I experienced when I was younger, through even like collective consciousness, you know, the system and everything, the stories that everyone have. When we are born, everyone tells us those stories and then we make them our own. So the perception that your parents have and that the government and everything, the systems that are in place, you are identified to these stories because that's all you know. But it's not because this is mainstream that it's the absolute truth. There's something deeper than that. We got disconnected. We got disconnected from the truth of who we are. We attached ourselves to a false identity, and this is why we are suffering. Look at those stories that are keeping you in the loop of suffering. Where are they coming from? What are they trying to share to you, and how can you observe them without identifying with them? There's someone that is experiencing the experiences. You are not the experiences, you are experiencing them. There's someone observing them. That's you. That's your consciousness. Your consciousness can't be contained into a small story, into a small belief, into a box. There's something way bigger that someone that is attached to suffering might not be seeing. But I know you can feel it in your heart. If you step back, you can feel it in your heart. You can feel it when you're hiking in a mountain, when you're taking a walk, when you're in the middle of nature. You know, if you feel stuck, maybe just go in nature. Maybe this is what you need right now, because nature has all the wisdom that you also hold within you, and it can help you unlock that wisdom. You can learn so much from nature because nature is you. But since we got disconnected, being in nature helps us reconnect to our roots and liberate the roots of suffering. Okay. Oh, I can't stop the video because kitty cat is here.